Hello, good evening, everybody. How are we all? I hope everyone's doing okay and wherever in the world you are. So nice to be back. Welcome to the OurWhisky Festival 2021. I can't believe we're back again for another year. I'm so excited to be presenting to you again. I think last year was just such an amazing success, and it was so lovely to have so many of you join us for the festival that we couldn't possibly not do it again. So thank you so much for joining us. Even if you haven't got a tasting pack in front of you, I think we've got people from all around the world joining us. So tell us where you're from. I want to see where everyone's from and where you're joining us. Whether it's from the UK, I know a lot of tasting packs went out to Scotland, so say hi from up there. But if you're overseas, then do let us know where you are. I think before we get cracking on this, oh my God, it's going to be such a great session. I want to tell you the story of how this came about. So if anyone is joining us and maybe you weren't here for the first year, then I want to tell you about how this came to be. So the OurWhisky Festival was around March time 2020. So almost about a year ago, the world went into lockdown and everything changed for everybody. And unfortunately, all of hospitality closed. And I decided that, it's a shame that whiskey shows, whiskey festivals were closing. We couldn't see our friends and we certainly couldn't get to the bar. And a lot of people were losing their jobs. Bars were closed and furloughed. And I really wanted to do something which brought people together. We all love whiskey, and we know that whiskey is a great socializing drink. So I thought, why not do a virtual whiskey festival, which at the time sounded like a great idea. The logistics of getting tasting packs out to people at a time where everything was closed. There were no couriers running. The mail was taking weeks. Even getting a bottling hall to help out with bottling was such a challenge. But thankfully, we managed to pull it all together, and we raised over £12,000 for the Drinks Trust charity, which is a charity here in the UK, which helps people in the drinks industry who've fallen on hard times. And they created an emergency fund that they sent out emergency grants to people working in the drinks industry, so bartenders and others who really needed a lifeline at that point. So if you joined us last year for the festival, thank you so much for all of your help. That, a lot of credit has to go to you. And if you're back again for another year, then thank you even more, because again, we're raising money for the Drinks Trust charity. I know everything is starting to open up again, but there are still a lot of people out there who are on furlough. Life isn't quite back to where we need it to be. So let's raise a bit more money for people in the drinks industry, and let's get the whiskey world back on its feet again. If you have tasting packs in front of you, then thank you so much for purchasing those. You'll see all of your samples are labeled from 1 to 5, and the reason there is no name on those whiskies is because we wanted to add a bit of excitement. I think we could all do with a bit of excitement these days, am I right? So we're going to be introducing I'm going to introduce a few of our guests. We've got a great lineup of amazing women. I'm excited to speak to them. I know you guys are going to get so much out of this. Before I introduce them though, I just want to go through a few pieces of housekeeping. So thank you so much everyone for sending in your comments already. This is great. Glasgow, Edinburgh, sunny Brighton. Do you know what, Tabby? It's not that sunny. I'm calling you on that. It's really not that sunny today. There's people coming in from all over the place. It's really good to see you. Sunny Sheffield. I do hope the sun is shining for you, Chris, up there. Please do send in your questions and your comments. We'll be posing all of your comments and questions to our panel. So do keep chatty. If you do have a question, and not everybody is comfortable asking something publicly, so if you have a question and you'd like me to pose it anonymously, then do get in touch. Do direct message me through @OurWhisky on Instagram. I'll be picking up those comments, so I can ask any questions you'd like to remain anonymous that way, and I will not reveal your identity. Also, this tasting is going to be recorded, so don't worry if your doorbell goes, if that's your curry on a Thursday night coming in, or if the baby wakes up, don't worry, this will be recorded so you can watch it back at any point. You're not going to miss out. Also, I need to say a huge thank you to a few people out there. That we couldn't have made this possible without the support of some of our partners. So I'm just going to bring up a wee slide here. So obviously we're raising funds for the Drinks Trust, but the Dram team in Claxton's have been incredible at helping us with the logistics this year, and they've donated a portion of their time and effort to making this possible. So thank you so much to the Dram team in Claxton's. Also, Milroy's of Soho, who now have a swanky new website, which looks fantastic. That's milroys.co.uk. They are offering a 10% discount on all bottles that are featured in the festival, so throughout the month of May. So if you head over to milroys.co.uk at any point, if there's a whiskey that you've tasted that you really like, they're giving you an exclusive 10% discount on anything, and you just need to use the code OurWhisky10. Don't worry if you haven't got a pen to hand to write that down now. I'll talk about that again at another point during the show. Right, I think that's about it. Oh, just lastly, if you're not following us on social media, please do, at OurWhisky. It's the same on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram as well, and do share about your experience, particularly if you've had a good one. If you really enjoy this tasting, we still have some tickets remaining for the rest of the festival. So if you've enjoyed this, either go and buy another ticket or share your experience and help us sell some more so we can raise more lovely money for the Drinks Trust. Do you know what? That's it. I've had enough. Let's get some whiskey. I don't know about you guys. I am thirsty, and there are some amazing whiskies in front of us that I would really love to try. So, without further ado, I think it's time we welcomed our guests. People have probably guessed who's going to be in this. Has anybody got any educated guesses about who's going to be on this? I don't know. Do you know what? I'm going to invite them in one at a time. So let's see. First up is Cara Laing from Douglas Laing Co. Hi, Cara.
Hi, Becky.
Nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. It's always nice to have a whiskey or five on a Thursday evening. It's nearly the weekend, so I'm looking forward to it.
Do you know what? It's the most fun you can have on your sofa on a Thursday night, I think.
Currently, yes.
Now, our next guest, if you haven't guessed, is Louise McGuane from JJ Corry. Hi, Louise. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be back. We did this first time round, and I can't believe it's been a year. Crazy. So thanks for having us.
No problem. Of course, you were a supporter of us last year, so thank you so much for coming back, Louise. Our third guest is none other than the awesome Jill Boyd.
Hello.
Hi,
hey.
Hi, Jill, whiskey maker of Compass Box.
I know, and delighted drinker on a Thursday night. This is kind of perfect. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm so excited to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Our next guest, our fourth guest, is none other than the incredible and very bubbly, probably one of the biggest personalities in whiskey, I'd say. It's Angela Trazio from Mackmyra. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Becky. Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to see you. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
And last but not least, it's the one, the only, the powerhouse that is, I think some of you have guessed this, Fawn Weaver. Hi,
Hello,
Fawn.
Becky. How are you?
Great, thank you. It's so good to have you. Look at these lovely faces we have.
I think I'm the only one who it's morning, so who has to work the rest of the day. So my tasting may be slightly different than your tasting.
Oh, maybe. Well, do you know, everyone watching, I think some of the feedback that we had last year was that we weren't able to get tasting packs out to all of the speakers, logistics being what they were at that point. This year, I've tried my best to get tasting packs out to everyone. But do you know what? Since last year, the UK has left the European Union and I can't send anything overseas without it being stuck in customs or being stuck on a ship somewhere going round and round in the sea. So I'm really sorry to say that Angela and Fawn maybe don't have all of the whiskies in front of them, but we're going to do the best that we can. There's some great comments coming in already. So here we go. Mark Thompson says, what a lineup. Tell you what, Mark, you are not wrong. Nicole, love the Chief Nose Officer title. Angela, brilliant. Love it. We all love a good nose. Oh, this one then from Rachel. Yes, we love Jill. We do love Jill. Jill is fantastic. And Sophie, I'm so excited for this too. Fantastic. Guys, I think we're going to kick off. I think let's get a whiskey in our glass. So if you've got your samples in front of you, you want to choose the sample which is labeled number 1. It's an Irish blended whiskey. So I think you can guess where we're going to go first and head over to Louise. Louise, can you introduce this, please?
Yes, I think we'll get straight into the whiskey, I think. So this is a very special blend that we did exclusively for Milroy's of Soho, actually, who are one of the fine sponsors of this. And Milroy's are a really good customer of ours. And this is one of the last whiskeys we made before lockdown, one of the last special whiskeys we made before lockdown, and it's called the Bridie. So the way that we made this was essentially we took all of the staff, all of our friends from Milroy's, who are a great advocate of JJ Corry in Soho, and we brought them over to the farm, and then we spent 2 days in the rack house amongst our maturing whiskies, and we just created a whiskey. It's called a Bonder's Blend. That's kind of part of what we do at JJ Corry. And if you want to sort of get into the nose on it, and I'll tell you more about sort of our approach to Bonder's Blends after, it's a very sort of elegant for perfumed whiskey. It is 5% 2002 malt, which at the time was 18 years old. And it is 28.5% 14-year-old single malt, and then the remainder is 10-year-old grain. So that's the composition that we came up with. And that 0.5% of the 14-year-old was, we went over and back on it with the Milroy's team. It's lovely and elegant and perfumed on the nose, which is very much sort of coming from some of those grain stocks that we have. And then if everybody wants to take a little bit of a sip, this is a good kind of start to the evening, I think, because this is a really kind of classic JJ Corry style. It has lovely sort of ripe peach tones and lovely floral notes to it. So it's a good sort of first whiskey of the evening.
So light and fresh, Louise. I'm really loving this.
Yeah, it's really lovely. Like this is really, really balanced. We've done a couple of whiskeys for Milroy's, and the first one that we did was much sort of malt heavy, but this one we really wanted to have something a lot more elegant, a lot more floral. I think on the mouth it's got those lovely ripe kind of peaches, whitestone fruits that come through, and then there's kind of some lovely sort of honey notes, I think, on the end. And it has a lovely finish and a really good mouthfeel as well. So yeah, it's called the Bridie, and the reason it's called the Bridie is, again, when the Milroy's team visited us in County Clare, I took them to the gravestone of JJ Corry, who founded our brand, who died in 1932, and he, he's buried there, and one of the people that's buried with him is Becky Corry. Who was actually his daughter, and she ran JJ Corry's shop up until her death in 1983, and kind of kept the shop exactly as it was. So they wanted to kind of pay an homage to some of the great women in JJ Corry's life, and that's what they called it.
There's
the
name of a meat pasty.
It's a person's name in Ireland. Bridget Bridie. Yeah, but it was a lovely whiskey to put together. I think at JJ Corry, one of the things that we do is we don't distill. We source whiskey from kind of all over the country. We source new make whiskey, and we source mature stocks of whiskey, and then we mature them on site on the farm, and then we blend them kind of when they're ready. So we're capable of doing really, really tiny blends. This was only about 22 cases, or maybe less, I think. So it was a really, really small, proper small batch, really tiny batch that we did for the guys. And I think they have a couple of bottles left, not that many. But yeah, it's called a Bonder's Blend. Back in the day, JJ Corry, when Bridie was alive, would have done exactly this for his customers. You know, he had a little shop in our local town of Kilrush as a whiskey bonder, and his kind of stock in trade would have been making really tiny batches of whiskey for people. And the Bridie kind of embodies that. What do you guys think?
Let's ask the panel. I know that Cara and Jill, at least anyway, have this whiskey in front of them. What do you guys think of this?
Excellent, and a great one to start with. I'm a huge single grain fan, so for me there's a lot of that sweet, kind of caramelized sugar character coming through, and it's delicious, and a nice high strength as well.
I have to agree with Cara. I saw someone in the comments had said it was like a whiskey version of a white wine. And I could imagine, like, on the 3 days of sunshine we'll get up in Scotland, sitting in the garden with this. It's just beautiful. It's so fresh and floral, and perfume is beautiful. Really, really gorgeous.
That's so kind. Thank you, guys. Coming from you guys, that's very high praise indeed. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and everybody's saying peaches in the comments. And yes, that's one of the things, like, that's kind of starting to become a lovely kind of JJ Corry signature that we chase down now. You know, we're a pretty young business. I only founded the business in 2015, and we came out with our first whiskey in 2018. So we're developing our house style, but those peach notes, the stocks that we have are full of them, and we tend to chase down that particular profile.
A brilliant whiskey to kick us off with there, Louise. Good choice. Don't forget, if you do like this one, if you're a big fan of peach and fruitiness and light floral and grain whiskey, I love a grain whiskey. Brilliant to start this one. Don't forget, you can these bottles are available at Milroy's, and there's currently a 10% off discount for everybody who's watching this right now. So don't forget to use the discount code OurWhisky10. Louise, you say that you founded JJ Corry in 2015, which 5 years. How have you seen, like, the company evolve and grow? Like, you started out being Ireland's first whiskey bonder, and now you're about to launch in the States. You're now exporting overseas. It's a big moment for you.
Yeah, it is. Like, this is kind of the moment in the business that is, I would have either completely crashed and burned by now, or I am kind of where I am, I guess. And when I started the business as a whiskey bonder, it's a very particular business model. Like, you don't distill, you source whiskeys from all over the place. So you need to have a really comprehensive library of whiskey flavors from which to blend to do something really unique. And when I started the business, there was 3 distilleries on the island of Ireland in 2015, and today there are like 38. So I was quite prescient, although I didn't really realize it at the time. It's a fantastic time to be a whiskey bonder, because there's so much kind of flavor to choose from now on the island, and so many new distilleries to work with. So I'm at the moment kind of setting about building the most comprehensive library of Irish whiskey flavors. That's my goal, is to have whiskies from all corners of the island, lots of different styles, lots of different approaches, and to have that really interesting collection. And I'm very much looking to the future, and in whiskey you're always looking 20 years ahead. So half of my head is 20 years ahead in terms of gathering those stocks. And then the other half of my head is, and as you say, that kind of business expansion piece, because we're at a real inflection point. We just signed a big national distribution deal, an importation distribution deal across the United States. And that's the inflection point in the business that's taking us from legitimately startup to kind of, just about scale up. So this week we just shipped off our biggest ever shipment off to the US, and there's about 4 more of those to go. So it's a really nerve-wracking time, going from being small to being not so small anymore.
It's a huge moment for you. This is congratulations, by the way, on building such an incredible brand. There are 3 women here who are heading up their respective companies. I think it's so great to have so much talent and so much entrepreneurial skill in this one call. Cara, like for Douglas Laing, obviously it's a family company, but you must be so proud of how much it's built and grown over the years, and you've really taken it to new heights.
Yeah, we certainly, we don't sleep much. We have a philosophy of we don't stand still, although a lot of similarities with you, Louise. And I was wondering, are you now building up filling programs? Is it similar to the model we have in Scotland as well?
It is pretty similar, actually, yeah. But I was the first to kind of approach it that way in Ireland, really. The Irish whiskey industry kind of collapsed in the 1930s, and there was only two or three distilleries on the island, so there weren't a lot of diverse business models. So whiskey bonding, as it's called in Ireland, that's what it was sort of named in Ireland way back in the day. So yeah, I'm out there sourcing big contracts from big distilleries, and then individual casks from like really small guys up the side of the mountain, with the goal of just having a super diverse flavor portfolio. Essentially, it's very similar, yeah.
Yeah, very. I mean, we've thrown into the mix a couple of distilleries, which definitely is taking its toll. I looked a lot younger a few years ago, but no, it's been a fun journey joining Douglas Laing, and as I said, a lot of similarities and overlap to what Louise was saying, and how our business is run. That we rely very heavily on these filling programs, which is what always annoys me with the perception that independent bottlers offer an inferior spirit quality, because actually we're buying our spirit at the 0 hours of age, straight off the still, maturing it our way in our own casks. So we've got so much hands-on control of the spirit quality, but that's one part of our business. And then the other is obviously now distilling, which is a whole new kettle of fish and quite a steep learning curve.
Something I definitely want to ask you about, Cara, very shortly. I think talking about one of the things you guys do at Douglas Laing is in the same way you're bottling individual distilleries under their own labels, but also doing a hell of a lot of blending underneath your own labels as well. We're going to be tasting one of those very shortly too, and actually I think it's one of my favorites in the range that you guys have. So I'm so pleased that you suggested that we have it in this tasting, so everyone else can enjoy it too. I think blending also, particularly for an independent bottler, is something again that's underrated, because you not only need to have a good nose for a decent cask, but when you're blending all of those whiskies together to make a product that's the sum of its parts, really, that is a skill in itself. I think now actually we should probably speak to one of the most accomplished blenders in the industry with she's got Angela. You are probably one of the most innovative blenders in the industry, because time and again the whiskies that come out from Mackmyra are so fascinating and so different, and you're often the first to release whiskies matured in a certain type of cask. Where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, in my case, I go outside of the box, you could say. I'm in Sweden, and we have a different culture around wine and drinks and all that. So it's not difficult to be in the woods in Sweden and get the inspiration from where you are, I could say. So in my case, I'm really, I come from having worked with the Scottish industry when I started for many years. So that's my background, but I'm a kind of a rebellic person, so I always like to go outside of a bit outside of the recipe. So I guess in my case, I'm always looking for new things and new combinations. And if I'm cooking, I'm never able to cook exactly by the book. I always have to add something, or do something of my own, which is like weird or so. So well, that's not the answer of your question, but talking a bit around it, I'm. Yeah,
you look to your surroundings, I suppose. For
yeah.
I do have an
Yes.
image that you talk about your distillery in the forest, and here it is. If anyone watching isn't familiar with Mackmyra, your distillery is pretty unique at the moment, at least anyway, for being a gravity distillery. So it's arranged vertically rather than horizontally, which is the traditional way of building a distillery or any kind of operation. So I think it's safe to say that Mackmyra, the whole identity of Mackmyra and yourself, is you don't think inside the box. That's not you. That's not your character.
Yeah. I think we came from from zero. We came from no whiskey in Sweden, and we came from there's not really a possibility of making whiskey in Sweden. Because it has been done, but it was never successfully done. And then we started inventing ourselves through, with Swedish oak and Swedish yeast and developing the process from there. And since I wasn't a blender, I wasn't I was a whiskey taster. I was a sensory person when I started at Mackmyra, and then I was the only person who knew about whiskey when we started blending. So I got that task, and
incredible. Do you know what? Actually, when you're talking about putting your own personality into the whiskey, I know that this one we're about to taste. So I think it's time we move on to the second one, and Angela can introduce this. So we're on whiskey number 2. In your pack, whiskey number 2. Angela, this is quite a unique whiskey. Again, another world first. And you've again looked to your surroundings and used your own passion to create this. Can you tell us a little bit about this whiskey, please?
Yeah. So this is not the first time we've used birch sap casks that has held birch sap wine, but this is the last. Yeah, that's the one. This is a really nice. It's my third. You could say my third version of it, and in this one, it's birch sap is really interesting. It's like a health drink. I don't know if you tried it. I think you might have it in Scotland, don't you? And on Ireland as well. I mean, the Northern Hemisphere generally has birch sap, and so it's a birch sap wine made by one of the wine producers we work with regularly, and it sort of contributes to the whiskey in a very sort of subtle way. And I would say that the nose, if you sense this whiskey, you might not sense the birch sap itself, but you sense that you get like a little waxy, oily tone from the birch sap in here, and that's where it comes into the nose. And then so you have all the casks sort of surrounding the birch sap. And then if you taste it, you get the sense in the mouth of it. You get the sense of this oiliness, a little waxiness, which is not the same waxiness as you get from Scottish whiskies when you talk about waxiness. So this is another type, which is like it's more the texture itself. And then a little floweriness. It's very light, and it's sort of just in the whiskey, and whatever you add around it, it sort of complements or not. And in this case, I've added some really nice old Mackmyra casks from 2007 and 8, and just a few from 2012. And then we have We have wild raspberry casks. We have some cherry wine casks, and some Oloroso casks, of course, as well. And the whole mix is meant to be like a spring whiskey. This is the spring whiskey from Sweden.
I definitely get that spring vibe. There's a lot of it's got that kind of, I'm going to say, cough syrup kind of style to it, like those cough drops that you'd have, and it's this lovely anise sweet kind of, it just lifts you. I can't say I've ever tried birch sap before, so I've got no idea what that flavor is. What does birch sap taste like specifically, and what does that bring to a whiskey?
Well, if you try it, if you go out in the woods and find a person who produces it, who kind of taps it from the trees. Now it's too late in Sweden. You do it before the trees are, the leaves are coming out. So that's when the trees are sort of bursting with sap, and it's very sort of light and doesn't taste nearly of anything. It's just like a light texture, sappy. Well, it's like drinking health itself.
Oh, I love that, drinking health itself. But do you know what? I think it would be fantastic in a hot toddy. That's a cold smasher right there, I think. Fawn, have you ever tasted birch sap before?
I've never tasted. I actually haven't heard of it, and I'm so jealous sitting over here without being able to taste a springtime Scotch. I've never heard it described that way, and so I'm just sitting here like, I bet you it tastes delicious.
I'm going to try my best to get those whiskies out to you, because I'm so sorry that you haven't got this in front of you. It's so interesting.
It's okay. I'm just waiting for us to get to Jill, because that's the one I've got.
Well, do you know what? Jill is coming up next. So,
all right.
So
all right. I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Yes. Well, do you know what? It's probably a good thing, because if you are in your morning, you haven't got 5 whiskies to get through. You've only got a couple.
I'm in Los Angeles and working from here this week with the team, and I was thinking, gosh, I've got a meeting as soon as this ends, and that would have been interesting if I was 5 tastings in with no food on my stomach. So yes, this is it. This is actually good that I only have the one.
Okay, good. I don't feel so bad now. That's good to know. But Fawn, it's like you've got so much exciting stuff happening as well. Obviously, you are also a founder, just like Louise, founded your own brand, Uncle Nearest, which is like taking the world by storm at the moment. Congratulations. And your distillery, I'm following your story on Instagram and watching the distillery come to life. How is everything going?
Everything has been wonderful. So we've been distilling in Columbia, Tennessee for almost going on 4 years now. But to be able to watch our still come from Vendome in Kentucky, and it's just sort of like waiting on it to be able to come and be erected in a couple of weeks. It's an exciting time, because we opened up the distillery without the still house in place, and just with other elements of the distillery, because we didn't build out a distillery like most usually would do. Ours, I mean, when the press came out and called it Malt Disney World, they weren't wrong. We have built out so much that literally has nothing to do with the distilling process itself, but so much to do with history, because our brand is built on history. And so we have so many surprising elements when people come. We reopen in June after the COVID situation. And so we reopen the distillery, and we open for phase 2. And when people come out in June, I think they're going to be pretty blown away to have seen us bring the entire vision to life.
Have any of our ladies on the panel been to Uncle Nearest? So anybody watching? No. Well, do you know what? When the world opens up, for me, it's It's going to be an incredible place to get to. And I want to hear a little bit more about the Uncle Nearest story form when we come to you. I think you're the last one we're going to be tasting, so we'll be wrapping up with a nice story. But for anybody who's watching who doesn't know the story of Uncle Nearest, A, where have you been? But B, you're going to hear all about it from the lady herself. So we'll come to that. Guys, don't forget to ask your questions to our panelists. So if you have anything that you'd like to ask our wonderful women, then do put them in the comments. And if you're a little bit nervous about asking a question which you deem to be silly, of course, we know there's no such thing as a silly question, then you can DM me on OurWhisky's Instagram. And I'm checking my phone every now and then. It's on my lap here, and I will pick those up and I can ask them anonymously. So do that. Okay. Right. I think it's probably time for our next whiskey. Before we do move over to that, I think for some people watching, they may be very new to whiskey. I think there's a mixture of people following us for the OurWhisky Festival. We've got a lot of people in the trade who are so keen to hear about your stories, about how you got into whiskey and your career paths to date. And there's a lot of people as well following who are very new to the category entirely. So I think one of the joyful things about working in the whiskey industry, and tell me if you guys agree, I'm pretty sure you will. For me, my favorite part is handing somebody a whiskey and seeing their eyes widen as they realize what's in their glass is just so delicious, and they're surprised and delighted at the same time. What for you was your aha moment? At what point did you nose a whiskey and go, oh my God, this is fantastic, I have to work in this industry? Jill?
Sorry, I realized there that I couldn't unmute myself, and I was like, no, you've got this. I was like, I've got it. I have such a bad introduction to the whiskey industry, from being on the cusp of drinking age and having a big old swig of something heavily peated out of a bottle after drinking passion fruit Bacardi breezers, which sent me on the wrong direction for whiskey drinking. I was like, this isn't quite what I'm after. So I skipped like 6 years of my life not coming near whiskey, because I always assumed that whiskey was smoky and big, and it wasn't something that was for me. And then I remember working in a whiskey bar, and my boss was like, you need to like a whiskey, or at least be able to talk about one. And the very, very first whiskey that I ever tasted and thought, I'll come back to that glass, was a Dalwhinnie 15. Gentle spirit, light, delicate, beautiful. And at the time, I loved that. I loved rum. So I was really into the Balvenie 14-year-old Caribbean cask. And then I started progressing into wine finishes because I loved red wine. And it just blew up from there, and it all opened up. And then now, hilariously, from being someone who wouldn't touch a smoky whiskey, almost all the smoky whiskies I'm involved with are my favorite. They're my go-to day-to-days. But that first ever Dalwhinnie 15 just changed everything. I was like, yeah, this is the one. And yeah, it's been a bit of a love sore head relationship ever since then.
Thank you. I'm muted. Thank you. We've all got that story of coming into the industry drinking something which no one else would probably touch. But yeah, Chris started on Smirnoff Ice and then moved to Jack Daniels. Jill, you've got your Bacardi Breezer. We've all got a starting point, folks, and it's fine. It's fine to start somewhere. Cara, what about you? What was the whiskey that opened your eyes and made you fall in love with it? Oh, Cara, I can't hear you. No, we still can't hear you. Let's try Louise instead.
Yeah, I think I was it was actually I've worked in the industry for a very long time. I've been very fortunate to be in big companies that had these amazing portfolios. And really the first exposure I ever had was Glenmorangie. And I remember being up there, being at Glenmorangie and on a work trip, and probably some marketing, junket or something, I don't know. And I went there, and sat in, there's a big old hall up there kind of filled with hunting trophies and stuff like that. And we were hearing all about the history of Glenmorangie and that piece of it. And that was really the moment, because it was an entire weekend spent up there, and it wasn't just about, drinking the whiskey. It was about the heritage that surrounded it, the craftsmanship that went into making it, and the place where it was from. And, that's what whiskey is, really, isn't it? It's like those kind of elements, like even if it's modern heritage, what doesn't matter? Like, it's where it's from and the atmosphere and all that. And brown spirits, but whiskey in particular, has that. And it really kind of hooks you in. And that was kind of my moment, and it was a light bulb moment for me. And I realized there's really sort of something interesting in this. And legitimately founding the business, that's always echoed in my head. That experience, probably 23 or 4 or 5 years ago, that experience has always echoed in my head and resonated when I was founding JJ Corry.
It's amazing the experiences that we carry with us, isn't it? I'm grateful I don't carry my first whiskey experience. It was finding a bottle of Grant's down the side of my brother's couch. I'd gone to stay with him to study for my GCSEs. And while he was out at work, I found the bottle of whiskey and took a swig from the bottle and nearly gagged and puked all over his living room floor. So I'm not carrying that memory with me in my day-to-day.
Now look at you. Look at you now. How far you've come.
I know, look how far. Everyone has to start somewhere. I didn't touch whiskey again for a long time. I moved more into, I started off with spiced rum and Coke and Archers and lemonade. Oh my goodness. And then moved more into, I found whiskey through drinking dark rum. So the sweetness then led me through. So that was my gateway. But everyone has a gateway. Fawn, what were you drinking as a young girl, and how did you move into whiskey?
Yeah, I was drinking a bunch of sweet stuff that put me to sleep. And so it was a running joke when my husband and I, we celebrate 18 years of marriage this year. And when we first got married, he had a lot of friends, and they would drink wines and go to wineries. And you could always find me in a corner asleep somewhere. The moment I had like a few sips of wine, alcohol just put me straight to sleep. And so we were at a friend's house, and there's this running joke, this ongoing joke is going on, and he gives me Oban, and I was like, I don't like that. And then he gives me something else, I don't like that. And then he pulls out this Colonel E.H. Taylor, and I had no idea what it was. He didn't tell me. And so he just gives me a glass, and I'd probably say it was a single, maybe a little bit more than a single. And so I sip on it, and I'm talking to people. I never get tired at all. And I'm just sipping on it and sipping on it. I ask for more. He gives me another, but this time he gives me a double. I'm sipping on it throughout the night. And then he comes to me at the end of the night, and he goes, how in the world did you not go to sleep? And you go to sleep off of sips of wine. And what I was giving you was E.H. Taylor single barrel proof. And I loved it. And from that day forward, I knew whiskey was my drink. And so I've been drinking it. That's been my drink of choice ever since.
Well, there you go. Starting on the good stuff, Fawn. Start as you mean to go on. That's a great whiskey story. Angela, how did you start off your whiskey journey?
Well, I started off by stealing some mix of stuff from the cupboard when I was young, and in Sweden we used to call it a witch brew. So you take a little whiskey and a little vodka and a little from every bottle, so that they won't notice that you have taken something, and then you mix it and you drink it. So that was my first whiskey, and I really didn't like whiskey at all by then. And then I moved for some years. I moved to Italy, and Italy was quite early in the whiskey trend, I believe. And I was staying in Italy when I was, in my 20s, and there was a really cool whiskey bar that opened. So me and my friend Betta, we went there and we tried. I think it was 5 very young malt whiskeys were there then. It was a young Macallan, Glen Grant, and Glenlivet, I believe. And we were just surprised by how smooth and nice they were. It was like, it was not whiskey nearly for us. And then fast forward, I come back to Sweden, and I got a friend who says, you should try one of these very smoky things. And he got me a bottle of Lagavulin, and I thought, it's like, oh, this is weird. This is really weird shit. And so I put it aside, and then some friends come along, and I said, come on, let's taste this weird shit. And then we tasted. And the second time I was like, interesting. It's not that bad. And from there on, I kind of, realized the quality of it. And then when I started working with Glenmorangie some years later, they sent me on a education, doing all the things in Scotland. And then I was gobsmacked by the quality and the love in the products that I felt. So
it seems like having a stint in Scotland seems to be a lot of people's gateway into whiskey. I know, Jill, you studied in Scotland, so I know for you and Sophia just mentioned she went to university in Scotland and now really loves it as well. Cara, is your microphone working yet? Do we have you?
You can tell me.
Yes, we have you.
I pulled them out and put them back in, and it seemed to work. So
you know what? That's always the way, isn't it? Turn it off, turn it on again.
Exactly.
We're going to move on to our next whiskey in a moment, but before we do, what was your gateway? How did you get into whiskey? I know obviously it's in your family, it's in your blood, but were you a whiskey drinker from the start?
For a period of time, far too early, probably about age 7, I was given a hot toddy made with Port Ellen, and I thought it was the most insanely ridiculous stuff, and didn't really know why my dad was inflicting it on me, and that was definitely my first experience of whiskey, and it wasn't particularly positive. Now looking back, I 100% should have been, but like Jill, went through the Bacardi Breezer Smirnoff stage, then would have a whiskey at the end of the night and would blame the whiskey for the way I felt the next day, not the rubbish I was consuming. But then I think the turning point for me was joining the industry. At that point, I worked for White Mackay, and getting to try whiskies straight out of the cask in a warehouse, cooling it with the Lynch, drinking it straight there and then in a cold, damp warehouse is pretty special, and the flavours are totally unique at that point. I remember getting like ripe bananas and vanilla pods and just thinking, this isn't the horrible stuff I remember. And ever since then, it's hard to imagine doing anything else or drinking anything else.
That's it. It's something about whiskey that just draws you in. Like, you get that eye-opening moment and you're like, oh, okay. As Fawn says, this is my drink. I know exactly where I'm at with whiskey, and it sucks you in, and you can't help but be in love with whiskey. It's. I feel sorry for anyone who hasn't tried it yet, because then they are missing out. Right, let's move on to our third whiskey. I think it's about time. So you're looking for your sample that's labelled with the number 3. And for this one, we're going over to the wonderful Jill Boyd. Jill, can you tell us a bit about this whiskey, please?
I certainly can, but I have to say, everyone is being so nice tonight. Everyone is being like, the wonderful Jill Boyd. And I'm like, can I get that printed somewhere and just stick it above my desk and be like, only refer to me as such? I'm like, I love it. So tonight we are drinking some Artist Blend. We're going for blended Scotch, about 45% grain. And Fawn has some. Yes, I saw a little fist pump in the background there. I'm like, yes. 45% grain from Cameron Bridge. Super rich, super creamy, first fill bourbon barrels. And then we've got these gorgeous components. We've got Klein Leash. We've got this gorgeous sherry cask, which is linkwood sherry this time. Our sherry component occasionally changes depending on exactly the flavor profile we're looking for. And then we've got this gorgeous big French oak nose as well. So it's really funny. I did a tasting last night at 1 o'clock in the morning. This morning? I suppose I did it today. I was talking about this earlier. And
this isn't you talking about it today or yesterday, by the way. This is just a random image.
I know. I love that, actually. I've tried to make it that in every tasting I do, I buy a new headband. And I'm like, that was a particularly good one. And every single time I'm like, I've got one here on the table just in case I didn't need it. I'm like, headbands and whiskey are going to be like my jam. There we go.
There you go.
Oh, that's James, our other blender. So there's 3 blenders in the company, myself and James. He is very intent. I'm wondering, this is from a competition we did in 2019 where bartenders basically tried to be the best in the world for making cocktails with our whiskies. And it was so much fun. It was deadly for everyone's liver, but it was so much fun. Like, what a good week. But sometimes I think back to that week and I'm like, that's a year of my life that I've lost from the end. It's so good. But yeah, so I absolutely love Artist Blend. Artist Blend's a difficult one for me because she's part of what I would consider a twin. I've got the bottles behind me, and I realised I've mainly got her, what I think of as her big sister behind. So we've got Artist Blend, which we're drinking just now, but we've also got Glasgow Blend. There are 2 kind of classic blended scotches, and the best way to put it is like we've got like beautiful Artist Blend, all about fresh, rich. We've got those peaches in there, but like flat donut peaches, really hyper ripe, kind of like white grape, kind of like pink lady apple, light, delicate, soft white fruit. Then we've got this background that's like, oh yeah, it's grassy. That's coming from the Klein Leash. Then I've got this beautiful French oak in the background. It's just, to me, it's perfect. But if anyone's ever seen 10 Things I Hate About You, this is the Bianca Stratford, the good little sister to like the angry punk rock big twin, which is Glasgow Blend. So I'm always like, I have to decide what mood I'm in the evening. Has it been like a chill week and I want a chill whiskey, or is it like a big week where I need a smoky whiskey? And this is chill whiskey for me. This is making a whiskey sour, pouring a dram and sitting in the back garden so long as it's like beautiful outside. It's smoked pineapple, it's everything. I love it. It's just so tasty. And somehow it gets better every time we bottle it. And none of us can put our finger on it. The recipe has stayed the same for a number of years now, but we were all nosing and we check all the bottle line samples. I do a lot of quality for the company and we check it as it comes off the line. And we're all standing there just like, let's all go to the pub. And yeah, I just love it. It's just, it's fruity, it's rich, it's everything I want. So yeah, I really love it.
And I also love your 10 Things I Hate About You analogy. It's now on Netflix. So I watched it the other night. The older sister is called Kat, I think.
Yeah. Kat Stratford and Bianca is like so lovely. But Bianca's got that little bit of punch in the end of it as well. So I love this because you've got that rich. I always say that grain whiskey is super easy. And I drink it. It's delicate and it's fleeting. The one thing about malt whiskey is I get this like warm throat whenever I drink it. And I'm just like, oh yeah, that's where the wee scarf's coming in. It's like my whiskey coziness, but I think it's beautiful. So yeah, we're really, really lucky.
Fawn, this is your one whiskey that you've got in your hand. So come on, tell us, what do you think?
You know what? It's delicious. And so here's the, I don't want to upset anyone, but I truly am a bourbon girl. I'm not a big Scotch fan. And the first Scotch that I ever came across that I loved was Johnny Walker Blue. So that's the only Scotch I actually keep in my house. And so I saw this and I was like, I want to taste, but oh my God, I hope I like it because I really don't like most Scotches. This is delicious, Joe. This is really good. I would actually sip on this. And I talked to, I don't know if you all know Tracy Franklin, who used to be over at Glenfiddich. And Tracy she's been trying to get me to find scotches that I love. And she's like, yeah, the scotches you love are like the bourbon scotches. So it's like the closest thing, like the tequila I love is 1942. And they're like, because that's the tequila that's closest to a bourbon. So I just happen to love bourbon, but this is very, very good. I would absolutely sip on this.
Amazing. Tracy is probably, so I was incredibly fortunate to get to meet her when she worked at Glenfiddich as a brand ambassador. She's probably up there in my top 10 favorite people of all time. Like,
yeah, mine too.
She's kind and clever, and I'm like, oh, stop pushing it. Like, you're so good. But
she's so smart. It has been amazing. She's in our Nearest and Jack Advancement Initiative, and she's been apprenticing under all of these top distillers in this country. And I always get emails and calls from them going, holy smokes, this chick is really smart, really, really smart. And so you can actually tell because she was an actress, because she's got so much personality, when she comes into some of the distilleries, they're expecting a face. And then they realize, wow, there's some massive brains here, right? And so, yeah, I cannot wait for her to start distilling. I think she's going to flip this entire industry on its head, at least in America, and I'm here for it. I'm so excited.
I was so happy to hear that she was in that program, Fawn, because she has just got this relentless curiosity and this passion. She is so smart, and she gets it. She gets it, and she's so great at communicating flavor and understanding the process. I feel like she was almost in a way wasted as a brand ambassador, because she has all of this smarts. She's just such a curious, talented person. I can't wait to see her journey as a distiller, as a whiskey maker, because got somebody that creative and passionate who's actually behind the liquid. That's going to be amazing.
And I always think about it and laugh about how close is her bourbon going to taste to Scotch, because she loves Scotch. And so I feel like she's going to be in the lab figuring out how to make her bourbon taste closer to Scotch. And I'm here for it. I can't wait.
Yeah, she's going to do something exceptional, and we're all just going to be like, as Angela delightfully said, we're all going to be gobsmacked. I love to hear a good Scottish phrase where someone's picked it up and I'm just like, oh, I don't hear that enough. So yeah, she's going to be exceptional.
Yeah. Is this available in DC? I'm trying to figure out how to get her a bottle of this.
It definitely is. Okay. Let's be super trendy and swap email later, and I will make sure and get, I mean, I know Tracy, definitely there will be a way I will get her a bottle of this, but yeah.
I think I'd love for her to have a bottle of this.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh, I love her so much. This is one of the reasons I love the industry, is I'm just like, can I just have like 10 minutes to be like, I love you and I love you so much. And it's ridiculous because it's always like this big love fest, because everyone is so excited for everyone to do well. And it's so supportive. Like I think, Becky, you've done an amazing job bringing such great women together to talk about such great whiskies. So we're super lucky.
Well, it's super easy when you've got such amazing women to choose from, to be honest. You guys are all, it's funny because when I was putting this session together, well, the whole festival really, OurWhisky was founded on the values of equality and inclusion and diversity. And when I looked at other whiskey festivals and whiskey shows, the lineup of speakers didn't reflect that. It never reflected that. And in fact, there were so many, even during lockdown, panel discussions where it was maybe 5 or 6 men and then 1 woman speaking. And I just thought, why? This is ridiculous. There are so many women working in whiskey. And I was always told the reason why they never had more equal numbers on their panels was because they didn't know any women, or that no women were available. And I'm sorry, but I call horseshit on that. I just think that there are so many women available. So the OurWhisky Festival, I'm so proud to say, has a 50-50 gender split. I'm still working towards having more people of color on our panels. I feel like we need to do a better job of having more people of color working in the industry, and I'll continuously work to try and make sure that those people are represented through OurWhisky. But I was speaking with somebody just yesterday about diversity and inclusion. It's not a destination. To achieve true diversity is not a destination, it's a journey. And we're all on it together, and we just continuously need to evolve and just continuously look at what we're doing, and we'll get there together. But I'm so flattered to have all of you ladies join us on this panel, because you're fantastic people and you're all rocking it as far as I'm concerned. So brilliant to have you all here. Anyway, look, back to the whiskey. Back to the
Oh
whiskey.
yeah, sorry.
We're not
Love
here.
fest over.
But do you know, one of the questions I had written down for you guys was around, you know, what is it that you love so much about the whiskey industry? And Jill, I think you touched on that, is that for me, the women who are working within the industry, and I'm including men in this as well, but it is a love fest. We're here to support each other and to promote each other. And everybody is working together to help each other out. And it really is a global whiskey family. We're all in this together to promote the spirit that we have all fallen in love with. But I'm going to ask a few of you, what is it that you love the most about the industry? Louise, I'm going to come to you first.
Yeah, I think it's that, isn't it? You know, within the women in whiskey, or the women in the industry community, I think it's kind of times 10. You know, it's because there's definitely a natural affinity for us all to help one another. But the industry in general is like that, like the drinks industry in general, like that. I will say that, you know, I've been sitting in front of this computer doing this for 1 year, you know, and we all have. And I have to say, if there's a benefit to this year, it is how that community has evolved and rallied. You know, exactly 1 year ago, or when we first locked down in Ireland, I thought we were dead. You know, I thought the business was finished. We did 200 euros of business, I think, in April of last year. I thought we were finished. And then suddenly we all went online. The entire whiskey community went online. And we were connected in a way that perhaps we weren't before. It was a different kind of connection, and it was an even more intense kind of connection. And, you know, this panel, and I think women in whiskey in general, even over the last year during lockdown, it is something that has really been concentrated, because we've been sitting at home doing this kind of thing. So if there's anything good to come out of it, it's that. And I think once we get out of this lockdown situation, additional communities that we've built during this time period will be even stronger. But for me, to answer your original question, it's that, it's the support, the fun. Like, can't wait to see all of you at whiskey festivals, you know, in person again. Like, if you ever need anything, call me. Like that's, you know, and if I ever need anything, I'll call you as well, and hopefully we'll help each other out. And I think that's the beauty of the industry.
Jeanette, there's been a call to let everyone know your social media handles. So we'll do that at the end and make sure everybody can follow everybody on social media. And I think also that, you know, that offer of help goes for, and I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all of you what on the panel, goes for everybody who's watching as well. If you want to get into the whiskey industry, or you want some advice, or you want some help in any way, we're all open ears. So just contact any of us and we'll help. I'm really sorry. I told these ladies before we got on that Isla would make an appearance at some point, and she's clambering all over me. I don't know if people are seeing. I'm dealing with a monster who won't leave me alone. She loves whiskey that much. It's a bit much. I think we need to move on to our fourth whiskey, because otherwise I think we might run out of time, and I want to leave some time at the end for questions. There's been a few coming in. So we're moving on to number 4. So your fourth whiskey, we're going to go to the lovely Cara Laing for this one.
Thank you, Becky. Yeah, this is a nice little sherry number to start rounding off the evening. So this is our Scallywag, which is a Speyside blended malt Scotch whisky, bottled at 46% strength. And without further ado, I'd encourage you to try it. On the nose, you should get a nice spicy cocoa mocha style coming through.
Wow.
Palate, I mean, the nice thing is you, particularly the panel, but everyone will get something very different. But and apologies to Fawn and Angela who aren't able to try it.
I'm still drinking Jill, and I'm going to pretend that I'm drinking. So listen, don't feel bad for me. It is a beautiful situation over here with this Scotch.
Whiskey for breakfast, not too shabby. So I've totally lost my trail of thought, but yeah, Scallywag on the palate, you should get a really, for me, it's got a wonderfully thick, creamy mouthfeel. Again, more of that milk chocolate coming through, a bit of warming cinnamon, nutmeg there. some dark fruits. It's got that archetypal sherry character to it. This one's been 100% matured in ex-sherry butts, and that's really what's giving it its colour, its colour and its flavour, I should say. At Douglas Laing, our philosophy is very much to bottle the way the distiller intended. So we understand why companies do it, but we choose not to add colouring. We choose not to chill filter, which again is why you get that thick, creamy mouthfeel. And we like to leave it at as high a strength as we can. So for this one, we've chosen 46%. Sometimes we release scallywags at natural cask strength where they can be up as high as sort of 53, 54. But this one, I would recommend try it as it is. Some people like to add a drop or two of water, and I'm totally for that. Some people like to add Coke, ginger ale. I'm actually very for adding ginger ale and a squeeze of lime. It's my summer go-to drink of a warm Glasgow evening. And yeah, the only other thing that probably does require a bit of explanation is the character. So the dog on the front, which I always forget to mention, which is terrible. This was actually inspired by our family dog. We have, as a family, there he is. This is actually her predecessor. So the original scallywag was inspired by my dog, Binks, who literally had one front tooth. So for anyone who knows this whiskey or knows this label, they'll notice the dog has only one front tooth, and Binks was definitely the runt of the litter. Oh. But she was a feisty, fun character, and she very much inspired this style of whiskey because it is quite a feisty whiskey. It's got a nice warm sherry depth to it. And she's no longer with us, but she lives on through scallywags. So hopefully you enjoy. It's one where, again, we recommend try it on its own, but equally for anyone trying it with some residual Easter eggs still kicking about, it's amazing how a bit of dark chocolate really brings out that mocha cocoa character of the whiskey. Cheers.
Cheers. This is delicious. I think there are so many lovely comments coming in for this one as well. I love that milk chocolate reference. Kind of, you know, I was like, wow, straight away you can get that beautiful kind of sherry sweetness on the nose. Lots of cola cube references and cherries coming in as well. Really delicious. That photo I just showed Cara, so the others in that photo along with a Scallywag 2. Does Scallywag 2 have a name?
He does, Cooper, actually. So keeping with the whiskey theme.
Cooper the dog. And next to you, so behind you there is Chris, your husband, and on the couch is Fred, your dad. I mean, what is that like, working in a whiskey company with your dad and your husband?
I love that you asking me 4 whiskies down. I could give you the political answer.
I'm a journalist, Cara. It's my job to get the answers out of
people. Loads of positives, loads of challenges. The positives are the 3 of us, and I include my long-suffering mother in this as well. We live and breathe the business. My grandpa started it. So we are all massively passionate and care about it a lot. And generally that means we're quite aligned, which is good. But I'd be lying if I said working with your husband and your dad was day after day a dream. Because there are moments where I am very glad I can come home and have a scallywag at night. So loads of pros, loads of cons, and I think anyone that's experienced a family business will understand exactly what the ups and the downs are.
One of the questions I really wanted to ask you, because I think the last time I saw you was I came up to Scotland to your offices and we had a dram together and we had a really good chat, and you were on the cusp of I think you'd either just had planning permission or you're waiting for planning permission to come back for your first distillery on the banks of the Clyde in Glasgow. So what's happening with that? Where are you up to?
Well, in the interim, we bought Strathearn Highland Distillery late 2019, and that's been quite an ongoing, exciting journey for us. So we finally became distillers with the acquisition of Strathearn, which we're doing a lot of work to. But the building of our own brand new distillery has been a massive eye-opener. Not least by the fact we then discovered that the Clyde apparently is a huge flood risk. So we are no longer building on the banks of the Clyde. That was out with our control, but we have a new site, still very much within central Glasgow, still within an old building, which was kind of a key priority for us. And we are still on track to be distilling before the end of this year. So the stills are produced. We are finally moving forwards with things, and have a very clear view as to what the spirit profile will be. Not your archetypal lowlander. It will be a really big, chunky, slightly more Highland style of whiskey. And we can't wait just to get started. It's been a painful process, and the last year and a bit of COVID has not helped, but we are, I think we can hand on heart say we will be distilling the first Clutha single malt, if not by the end of this year, then very early in 2022. So you need to come and visit again.
Oh, definitely. Do you know, that's a lot sooner than I thought it would be. So that's incredible, really exciting. And congratulations on the purchase of Strathearn, and good luck with getting Clutha up and running. Jill, were you wanting to...
Oh, I was just like, may I please be included in this? I was just like, when Becky's like, you'll need to come, and I was like, I would like to, I'm not quite, I can't get the angle right, but I'm like, yes, me too, please. I'm like,
can we let's organise a Who Run the World Girls on Tour.
Yeah, totally. And hopefully social distancing will be a thing of the past, and those from abroad can travel. So no, we will be, I think it has been the longest journey ever. I mean, we started this when my soon-to-be 6-year-old child was a newborn baby. We started writing this brief. I remember writing the distillery property brief with her in my arms, and she's about to turn 6, and it's just taken such a long length of time that I think we will have a lot of launch parties. So we will be looking forward to welcoming you all for much whiskey.
Excellent. Love a good launch party. Can't wait to see everybody in person, particularly everybody who's watching this as well. Who knows that someday we might have an actual OurWhisky event in real life, and we'll be able to actually have these wonderful women in front of you being able to talk about their whiskey in real life. Would be amazing. That whiskey was incredible, Cara. Thank you so much for sharing Scallywag 10. Just to reiterate again, everybody, if you are interested in purchasing any of these whiskies, then Milroy's have very kindly offered a 10% discount for everybody who's watching the OurWhisky Festival. So this goes for whether you've got a tasting pack or not. The discount code, just to remind you, is OurWhisky 10. So just make a note of that. And I'll repeat this again at the end of the show. And the website is milroys.co.uk. So you can go ahead over there and order your bottles of whiskey, lovely bottles of whiskey. Okay, we're going to move on. She's been waiting so patiently, bless her. She's been to Scotland. She's had a scotch, thank goodness. And now she gets to talk us through her wonderful whiskey, Uncle Nearest. And which expression have we got here, Fawn? This is 18.
Yeah, 1856. So what you're drinking is this. And which it cracked me up because they dropped us off. I'm in Los Angeles working with the team. I am fully vaccinated, and so I decided to do a thank you tour because these suppliers, the retailers, the bars, the restaurants have kept us sold out around the world. And so I kicked off a thank you tour on Monday and just visiting all the different places. So LA was my first stop, and when they said we're going to send you samples for the OurWhisky Festival. And I opened up the box, and I've got Great King and Uncle Nearest. I'm like, I know what Uncle Nearest tastes. What just happened here? But what you have in front of you is a blend of 8 to 14-year-old. It depends on every blend. We're looking at that color. We're looking at that flavor profile. You're going to get caramels, butterscotch, oatmeal raisin, cookie, buttered popcorn, those things that are very buttery, that are fatty. One of the things that we do with Uncle Nearest that is very unique to us, and it's one of the reasons I think we have won every award there is. We just won Best Tennessee Whiskey at the San Francisco World Spirit Awards. One of our other expressions won double gold. We've won double gold through them before, but the reason why I think we just keep sweeping our category of American whiskey, and we're the most awarded American whiskey, which of course includes bourbon, of 2019, 2020. It is the case of 2021, 5 months in, that we are ahead of everybody else in terms of most awarded. I think a part of that is our blending, which is Victoria Edie Butler, our master blender, is Nearest Green's 5th generation descendant, and she's just phenomenal. Her palate is incredible, and it is completely self-taught. So most blenders will actually proof it down to about a 40 ABV, right? That's what a 20 ABV. That's a 40 proof. That's where most of them will bring it down to find the imperfections and things of that nature. And Victoria is like, I'm not going to bring it down because this is where I want people drinking it. And so she does something very unique in that she blends based on tasting everything at barrel strength. And that is very rare in our industry. It's very unique, but I think because she really is blending based on what the end result will be, it's a little more predictable, if that makes sense. And so between the blending, and then we have a triple filtration. So it's already been filtered through the Lincoln County process, which of course, that's the only thing that distinguishes Tennessee whiskey from Kentucky bourbon, is this taking a traditional bourbon. I think most people out there know, but Tennessee whiskey, as what it is a straight bourbon whiskey, period, hard stop. That is what it is. And all of the rules are the same, except we have 2 things that are more stringent. Well, 3. One is it must be distilled, aged, and bottled in Tennessee. That's unique to that because bourbon can be made anywhere in America. It can be bottled anywhere in America. The second thing is that bourbon can be in any type of new American oak container. So that means that I can literally have a charred oak bucket and I can just put it in there and I can age it, and it is legally bourbon. Tennessee whiskey goes a lot further in that it must be charred new American oak barrels. So it specifies the type of tree, the type of oak, and it specifies that it must be a barrel. It cannot be a container. And so those 2 things. But the third thing is the most important, the most significant, and that is the process that Nearest Green taught. It is the process that he utilized for all of his whiskey, and that is taking that traditional bourbon distillate, which is 51% minimum corn, and running it through sugar maple charcoal at a very slow, methodical pace to pull out fusel oils, congeners, those things that we don't necessarily want in our whiskey. And so it pulls a good amount out before it goes into the barrel. And then for us, on the other side of it, when we're releasing it from the barrel, we are sending it through 2 additional filtrations. One is using natural carbon from coconut shells. It is what our head of whiskey operations, Sherry Moore, she is the most formidable, but she is the most experienced person in the Tennessee whiskey business, period, hands down. Most people do not know that is a woman who has been hiring and training all these other Tennessee whiskey distillers for many years, all the big guys. And she is the person who used to be the treasurer of the Filtration Society. God knows who knew that existed and that it needed a treasurer. But she loves filtration. She's tested out every single thing that you can filter with and concluded that the natural carbon from coconut shells removes the least amount of flavor and color while also removing the most of the congeners and the fatty oils that we don't want. It leaves in a lot, but it removes what we don't want. And then the third filtration is through diatomaceous earth. You can find it in your health food store. It's used to clean out the body. The irony is it's also really, really, really good with cleaning out fusel oils and congeners from whiskey. And so that triple filtration allows for it to have a uniquely smooth and flavorful, robust whiskey. And this particular one that you're drinking is at 100 proof.
It's delicious. I really love this one. Cara, Louise, and Jill, you all have tasting packs. So sorry, Angela. I hope you're like nosing on a lovely Mackmyra there. I'm so sorry we couldn't get you on. But to the other three, like, what do you think of this Tennessee whiskey? Because this is a leaps and bounds. This is so different to the style of Scotch and Irish whiskey that you guys are working with.
I'm a fan. I'm a really big fan of bourbon Tennessee whiskey anyway, and I've tasted this a couple of times before, and it's pretty spectacular. You know, it's really wonderful. I think the filtration narrative is just so interesting as well. You know, it's
Right.
to your point, Fawn. Who knew that there was a filtration society? But God bless them. You know,
we need to know more about them.
The nerdiest of nerdies. The nerdiest of nerdy people. We call Sherry our residential whiskey nerd. That is her internal title for us.
I would join that society tomorrow based on this. Like it really is. It's fantastic. Like I love this profile. You know, we use Tennessee and bourbon casks over here so that we can get like a little sprinkling of this flavor profile. So I'm a huge fan, and it's really wonderful.
Thank you.
I have a few images that I just want to share of Uncle Nearest, which was sent through. So I think first of all, it's important to see the distillery as it's taking shape, which it looks so beautiful.
That's our master blender house. So we when we opened it for phase 1, that was the temporary welcome center. It's where we had the tastings and where the tours began. And now when we open up phase 2, it is being converted into the master blender house, and it's pretty remarkable. So people will be able to come in and do their own blends, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, another reason to get over to the distillery then, for sure.
Yeah.
And then I have 2 more images that I really wanted to show because I think these are so fun. And I think one of them might be from a recent shoot that you did, but I just had to.
Yeah, that's our rick house. That's our first rick house, and that is so our residential nerd. As you can see, when she got the picture, she's all the way on the right, and she said, "You can tell who actually listens to only audiobooks versus music, because the other 3 of us are dancing to music. We're dancing to Beyonce, and she's standing there.
God, this is You Run the World. Yes.
Yes, we were dancing to Beyonce, and Sherry is like, I don't know what to do. The photographer told me not to move my feet, so I'm not going to move my feet."
You all look amazing there. By the way, Fawn, love those shoes. They are gorgeous. Love them. And they match this outfit
That's our
as well.
team. Yeah. So that is our executive team. That's very unique to us. So the person on the right is the newest person, Lucia Creed, and she's our director of marketing. But you've got our head of whiskey operations, our master blender, our SVP of sales and marketing, and me. And this is our executive team. We've been together from the very beginning. We're really, really fortunate. Uncle Nearest has grown at an insane pace. This is our 10th quarter in a row of triple-digit gains, so at least 100% year-over-year growth. And along the way, we have built an incredible team, and we don't lose people along the way. And so our executive team has been here, and we've been able to build this up from nothing. And the thing that's really cool with having all of these powerful women is that there has always been this sort of this chatter about the fact that women can't lead without cattiness and without jealousy and without emotion and all the rest of that stuff. And we're kicking everybody's ass right now, and with zero drama. And so it's been really, really nice to sort of shatter that, at least in the American whiskey industry, and go get those narratives out of here, because we are proving the exact opposite of what you said about women coming together to lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? This image just screams Who Run the World. This image screams, sister, we've got this.
Yeah.
All right. We've got it. We're good. Yeah. We're good. I need to also say, before we move on too far, that if everybody who bought a tasting pack, you'll know that I hid a golden ticket inside a tasting pack for this session. And what that means is if you find that golden ticket, you are eligible to select a bottle of whiskey from this tasting. It will be sent to your house, and that's yours. That's completely yours. I'm delighted to say that Tabby Adams, who is Spirit Bomb on YouTube, was the one who found a golden ticket. Congratulations, Tabby. That she's having a hard time choosing a whiskey. So perhaps if people can help out and comment which was their favorite whiskey of the tasting, maybe give us some help there, because I think this is a really tricky one, because all of these whiskeys have been phenomenal, really awesome whiskeys. Congrats, Tabby. Don't forget to let me know what your choice is. Mark Thompson, you little liar, you did not get it. See, this is the reason why I do keep a track of where the gold ticket goes. So it's not yours. I'm sorry. No. Guys, we've got maybe a couple of minutes left. So if anybody does have a question they want to ask to our panel, then now is the time, because we're about to run out of it. I think my question to maybe a couple of you, and I'll see who wants to step up here. What is your hope for the future in the whiskey industry? What would you like to see evolve and change going forward? And where are we going from here?
I will pipe in that I think our team, not one of the pictures that you just showed, but a photo shoot that we did was for the cover of the Current American Whiskey magazine, and in very big letters it says lessons in leadership, and then underneath it had, I think, the women making tomorrow's whiskey today or something like this.
Yes.
What I would love is when we get to a place where no one is calling out the fact that we're women, the same way no one calls out the fact that the men in this industry are men. When we can get to a place where there's no preface on the fact that I'm Black, or that there are people in the industry that are people of color, or that they're women, and we are simply whiskey makers, whiskey entrepreneurs, whiskey lovers, and that is what actually unifies us, and the only description that we're using. That is where I hope our industry is heading, and I can't wait for us to get there.
Could not agree with you more. And I know the cover that you're talking about, and I've got to say Phoebe Calver, who is the editor of American Whiskey Mag, is incredible. It's her birthday today.
Phenomenal.
Actually.
Happy birthday,
Phoebe. Happy birthday.
She's wonderful. She's absolutely wonderful.
Such a talent. And you know, when you can recognize talent in somebody who's up and coming in the industry, somebody who's really just killing it and is going to do big things, I think Phoebe is one of those people. So big love to Phoebe. You're doing really well. Jill, what is something that you would like to see change or evolve in the industry?
I think Fawn put it so well, because seeing those pictures of you and your team just looking so happy. I'm not saying that anyone in the industry who is a woman and has worked with other women hasn't experienced bitchiness, or, I mean, people fall out for all kinds of things, but that you're like, we are smashing it, no drama. That's what I want. I just want more people to talk about the fact that I always get asked at whiskey things like, you're a girl, do you like whiskey? One, so frustrating. But two, they're like, oh, there mustn't be many other women that you're kind of involved with. And you're just like, actually, we all get on great. We probably get on better when we've all had a dram than, just another bunch of strangers. Like, we're so lucky. And I think those pictures that you had for Fawn's team is just, that's awesome. That's what I want for the future. Just people to be like, yeah, a group of girls can make exceptional whiskey. They can be leaders. We can work together, and it doesn't have to be some kind of power struggle. It's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, that comment of, so that, you must not know very many people in the whiskey industry, many women in the whiskey industry. I got a comment the other night, well, I can only think of 3 women in the whiskey industry. Are there more than that? Well, I think we've just proved it tonight, obviously. But what I would personally like to see is we know that there is plenty of diversity in the industry. Perhaps there could be even more. But I would like to see that visibility become standard. I would like to see it become a consideration for the media, for anybody who's putting together a panel or a show or anything, to understand that there is more to making whiskey than just being, for instance, a white guy. There are tons of us making it and writing about it and talking about it and selling it. And I would like to see that being visible to everybody watching. Angela, what's your hope for the future?
Well, I agree with everything that has been said here. Totally, I'm with you on everything. My hope is that we don't have to have articles like the one you wrote a while ago, Becky, about the language, sexualizing and stuff. So it's my hope for the future, future generation women, that they will just join in and not having to hear that, not having to experience that, just because they are not of the right gender, they are not included, or something like that. So I think my hope for the future is that we hope. I think we have to call out those things a bit more now, even if it's boring. Even if I'm one of those persons. I really like to be only in the positive. I like to be with positive people. I like to spend time with really great people. But I also realize that some of the results are coming from that people have called out on bullshit and called out on stuff that hasn't been good. So we also need to be a bit uncomfortable, I think, with people who are not, fair and honest, and using wrong language and just guys hiring only guys and stuff like that. So that's the boring part of it. But I think we need to be honest about doing a bit of that boring work, and then go on with the positive side as well, of course.
I agree, and I think part of the problem is it's not, comments aren't always intentional. There's a lot of unconscious bias when it comes to the perception of women making whiskey or drinking whiskey. So sometimes it just takes a kind, quiet word to correct somebody, not in front of people. It's not about belittling anybody or calling them out publicly and making them look silly. It's about doing it in a sensitive way that's educational, because we're all in whiskey, and I feel like it's all our job to help others understand where we're at. Cara, what are your hopes for the future? Where are we headed? Not necessarily on gender lines either.
No, I think everyone summed it up so well that it would be lovely to get to the place where it isn't this remarkable surprise that there are women making a difference in the whiskey and indeed the spirits category. Beyond that, the sustainability angle, I think a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon just now, but frankly, if it's largely done for the right reasons and is making a positive impact, I'm really keen to see the new distilleries that are being built be as environmentally sound as possible. It's a big focus for us going forwards, and for the businesses that are really getting behind it and really, really driving it. I think it's amazing, and hopefully more of the same to come.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a huge focus on sustainability going forwards, and I really hope that with a collective effort, the whiskey industry becomes one of the drivers of becoming a more sustainable, environmentally friendly industry. And I know previously, I can't remember if it's the American government or a government somewhere called out the Scotch industry for being a leading light in terms of sustainability, and it is setting a precedent for other industries to follow, which is great to see. Louise, have I asked you already? I can't remember where I'm at.
No,
Jill.
no.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, I certainly echo the sentiments on the gender piece, and let's just address it for a second, because we hire a lot of very young women. I work with a lot of young women that I've brought into the industry, the same age that I was when I went into the industry. And my hope is, exactly as everybody here has echoed, is that the struggles that we've got, struggles, call them what you want, or the issues or the bits, things that we've dealt with during our careers, hopefully we'll be the last generation to deal with them. And hopefully it's not, to your point, remarkable anymore, to be a woman in whiskey. It's just you're a person in whiskey and you're a whiskey entrepreneur. And I'd like to see the young women that I work with now kind of pave that path. They'll be the ones who are slightly unremarkable, but very settled in the industry and in their careers. And the other thing I'd love to see as well is, and it's very indicative of the panel here, is this idea of world whiskey, if you like. So we've got Sweden here, we've got America, we've got Scotland, we've got Ireland, and there's plenty of other whiskey making countries, including like Great Britain below Scotland, and and France, and lots of really interesting countries who now are starting to get into whiskey. I'm really interested to see where that goes. New world whiskey and old world whiskey is a very interesting path. As part of the Irish whiskey industry, like, I have a very new world mindset, because we're pretty much a new subset of Irish whiskey, so it's a bit different. I'm very interested to see where that takes whiskey as a whole, because there's all these interesting people with interesting sort of terroir or interesting sort of senses of place, bringing new ideas to the industry. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Absolutely. And Jill, just a final comment from you, just before we wrap up the session.
Yeah, well, I think pretty much everyone has touched on the most important things that we're looking for going forward. We want people to just be people in the industry. And I think, yeah, like everyone said, I really look forward to people just being like, oh, you're a blender, and that's where it stops. Like, I love the big eyes when people go, do you work in the whiskey industry? And depending on whether I want to get into a full-blown conversation about what did you do and as a woman, or whether I want to actually kind of talk about what I do, I usually just say I'm in quality. So it'd be really nice for just to be able to say, I work in whiskey, and people's heads not explode. But I so look forward to sustainability, even stuff like 100% recycled glass, recycling corks, because the glue isn't, you can't break the glue down at the moment. So many things that are little tiny pieces of the puzzle are slowly beginning to kind of fall into place. And there's a lot of clever people working to get it all done. So I kind of just look forward to like a really bright, sustainable future, which is the most cheesy thing I said possibly this evening. But I'm like, I've had quite a lot of whiskey by now. But yeah, I really want the future to just be really bright. I think that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely. Let's steal that line from Orange. I completely agree. Completely agree. And I think it's actually working together that we'll get there. So I think, as you say, Louise, it's panels like this where we have people from across the globe listening and collaborating and working together, I think is the way forward. I am so sorry to say, as we have run out of time. So I'm going to have to say thank you so much to everybody. Tabby, don't forget to let me know what bottle you'd like for your gold index and for your gold ticket. And if you're watching, don't forget, there are still 4 golden tickets up for grabs. So there's one hidden in every single session for over the next few weeks. So there are 4 more sessions. If you haven't got your tickets yet for the others, then go and do it now. Club Tropicana next week, so next Thursday at the same time, is all about fruit bombs. So if you love a big fruity whiskey, so the Bridie had that lovely peachiness to it. We've got some cherries going on with Scallywag. If you love the big fruitiness, then Club Tropicana is one for you. We're going to try and get summer started early because don't know about you, but it's been a grey day here and I want the sun to shine. So next Thursday is going to be all about sunshine and flamingos and fruit and Hawaiian shirts, and we've got some great treats lined up for you, so do join us for that. And who knows, you may find a golden ticket and win a bottle of whiskey. Don't forget, if you want to purchase any of the whiskies that we've tasted today, then Milroy's have all of those in stock, and don't forget to use the code. I'm just going to show it one more time. That's OurWhisky 10. So that will get you 10% off any bottles that you want to purchase from there today. And that's from milroys.co.uk. So, my goodness, thank you so much to our wonderful panel. Please say thank you to the lovely Cara, Louise, Jill, Angela, and Fawn, last but not least. It's been incredible to have you guys on here. And I had so many questions we didn't even get to because we've had a great conversation. I hope everyone watching has had a good time. Don't forget to share your experience on social media. Oh, just before we go, I did say we'd talk about social media handles. I'll run through everyone quickly. Cara, what's yours?
Sorry, it's Douglas Laing on Facebook and at Laing Whisky on Instagram.
And Louise?
It's at Whiskygate across everything, or at Louise McGuane on Instagram for me.
And Jill?
You can follow Compass Box on at Compass Box Whisky Co, or I am there, but not always whiskey related, sometimes cake related, at _Jill.
Angela?
You can follow me on at Angela's Share on Instagram, and you can follow Mackmyra on Mackmyra Whiskey or Mackmyra Whiskey UK if you like.
Lovely. And Fawn, finally.
Yes, I'm Uncle Nearest on every platform and at Fawn Weaver on every platform.
Fantastic. And I am at Becky Paskin or at OurWhisky. And again, that's across every platform. I think that wraps us up. Thank you once more again to all our supporters, Claxton's, the Dram team, and Milroy's for making this happen. Thanks to all of you watching, and especially those of you who've bought a tasting pack as well, because don't forget, all of that money, all of the money you've spent on those tasting packs is going to the Drink to Trust charity. And I'm trying so hard, desperately, to beat our target of £12,000 raised last year. Hopefully we'll be helping a good cause. Thank you so much to our panel. I'm going to keep saying thank you till we close. So I'm just going to say
thank you.
Goodbye.
Cheers.
And thank you everybody for joining. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Becky. Cheers.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Cheers.